Hello, welcome back to Mortgages Made Easy. This is the final episode of season 2, and I thought it only fitting to get David Jackson back on back in the hot seat, should I say. We did this last season. I thought it was a very, very successful conversation, so I thought it would be good to sort of wrap up this season and get your thoughts on what's going on. Yeah. So welcome back, David.
Thank you, Philip.
No worries. What's been your highlight of this season in filming?
Everything's been a highlight, really, to be honest. We've had so many really good guests from different points of the industry, from the estate agent side, from the distribution side with Adrian, which I thought was very insightful. Catching up with Hugh, from talking to somebody who had actually launched into the world of actually setting up a mortgage brokerage about 7 or 8 years before I did, and see how his journey was. And then obviously the ones where we had the team, the new build ones. But I think we've put together quite a lot of content, and hopefully today we'll wrap it up.
Fingers crossed. What's been has there been sort of like a reoccurring theme that's come up in most of the episodes that it's sort of clicked in your head that you've heard again and again and again?
Probably not. I'd like to think we've sort of covered quite a few bases in a lot of different areas, which meant it was all different.
Yeah.
Everyone has a different. The thing I've liked is we've gone into backstories, see where everyone's come from, how they ended up where they are today, and also difference of opinions regards to the market. If you think as it stands today, when we first started, who could have predicted what Mr. Trump was going to do and how that would affect the market? So, but that's life, that's the economy, that's the world we're in. You just never know what's around the corner. But yeah, we've had some very good guests, and I think some very insightful overviews as to where they are.
What's the feedback been like from agents that you work with or clients that you work with that have listened to the episodes?
Yeah, look, we're obviously asking people to invest a lot of time when they listen to the full episodes. The shorts have gone down very well, some more than others. But overall, I think, it's been a good experience, and long may it continue.
Fair enough. So looking back at season 1 when we did this sort of sit down and we did all the episodes and stuff, how do you think the market has shifted from season 1 to season 2, apart from the obvious of Trump declaring war?
Well, okay, so taking the podcast out of the equation, the biggest thing in 2025 was the disruption from the Labour government, with so many flying so many kites that just cause unnecessary pain in the market, delays, people sitting on their hands. So I think when we actually started season 2, we were at that stage still waiting for the budget to come out. It's just never ending, and there was a lot of needless pain that got caused by, what's the best way to say, a government that should have been a lot more on the ball, actually understand everything they do and everything they say has consequences. Putting out rumours is horrendous. What's the whole thing? Trump sits on the toilet and tweets or whatever he does, and could cause a market to change. These sort of impacts in the modern world we're in, it's instantaneous, and it's understanding that what they're doing, the damage it causes, the unsettling feelings for people that in our industry are looking to buy, move house. These are big decisions that people are looking to do. Death, divorce, marriage, children will always keep the property market moving, but it gets caught and causes unnecessary strain on people, and people start, waiting rather than getting on with it. And then what you do find, because of the circle of life, as I say, death, divorce, marriage, children, things should just go like that, just tick along. But what happens is it gets caught, causes unnecessary sort of nervousness, and when it goes again, it causes a massive rush to the market. So you want that sort of thing to continue as smooth as possible. Life will never be like that, but it's understanding the things like that and the impacts that it does have on people's lives. It's just having ideas, great, but obviously put things in place. Let's be honest, this government had 14 years to plan for coming into power and what they're going to do. And it just feels like, especially last year, just felt like they just didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
And who knows what will go on in the future.
There you go. Do you think that has had an impact on buyers and people that are looking to invest in the market now? Do you think their behaviour has changed because of all the things that have happened or haven't?
Well, it always changes. There's always nervousness a lot. Even the time you've been working alongside myself, people are always very cautious when it comes to buy.
Yeah.
It's not like you're buying pet insurance or buying a car to a certain degree. A car is still a big decision to make, but when buying property, it's the biggest thing someone's going to make, biggest decision. You know, it's such a big amount of money people are going to spend. You know, I always, when I do my training for estate agents, when who have just come to industry, I explain what a mortgage is. Mortgage is mort, dead. It's a debt till you die. That's what it came from.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that it's such a long-term debt that people are going to take on board to be able to buy a property. So it's such a big decision that people need that sort of comfort, need the right advice around them. And ultimately, they need to feel comfortable with it. I mean, as you're older you get, the more you're not going to live with your parents forever, of course, but at some point you move out. It's enabling people to be able to move out and actually buy the first property, buy the second property, third. And the 20 years I've been doing the job, God, if it's actually probably a bit more, it's seeing those people, first-time buyers, and how they've grown through their careers and going up the ladder. And the biggest thing it has taught me is the earlier that someone could get on the ladder, the better they are further down the line, the more they're able to buy the second or third property, because it just comes down to building equity, building their next thing, know what you're up to.
Yeah.
And the sooner you do it, the better. So it's enabling people to be able to do that. So have things changed? That nervousness has always been there, even in good times. You know, there'll always be reasons to be nervous about things. You know, when there's a bit busy market, people are worried about prices going up too quickly. And obviously, when there's a down market, everyone's worried about the negative equity things they shouldn't really have to worry about. But there's always a nervousness there. There's never a right time to do it. The right time is to do it yesterday, as I say. But it's making sure that people understand what they're doing, have the confidence, and are speaking to the right people who have been around a bit. You know, ourselves, you know, we deal it on a daily basis, helping people buy. Whereas if you were buying your first property from a completely different industry, it's the first time you're doing this.
Yeah.
You know, we're immersed in it, so it feels quite natural to us.
Yeah.
So it's building that confidence and being there as a soundboard to help them.
Fair enough. I didn't want to show your age by mentioning how long you've been in the industry, but I'm glad you brought it up. I think it's what I wanted to sort of understand was buyers from when you first got into the industry compared to now. What has been the biggest change or difference between the way that you give advice, or the way you would give advice back then, to the way that you need to give advice now?
So if I compare it back to the 2000s when I started, mortgages weren't even regulated back then. It wasn't until November the 1st, 2004 that regulation actually properly came in.
You remember that? You had that date on the tip of your tongue there, didn't you?
Well, you know, I'm a stutto.
Yes, you are.
So, well, the biggest impact at the time was I'd only been doing the job for about 18 months at the point. You know, my former company, the illustration we would give them was 2 pages. And that just came off a sourcing system. So it wasn't even like the lender were providing documentation to give to the client at the point of making a recommendation. Yes, they would then offer a mortgage offer, but it was all very... I joined at a time where it was coming out of a very much a paper-based situation, and some of the bigger banks were allowing you to do it online, and some of those banks are still using the same system, so it's or at least the same front of it. So the ability and way people transacted was a lot more old school, and also the banks obviously did have high street presence. That's probably the biggest thing. Ultimately, you don't see people going into a bank now to make a mortgage application. No. There's no one there to be able to do that to. And even if you did, they won't have a mortgage advisor in the office or try and get you to actually do it over the phone. So MCOB in 2014 was probably the biggest thing actually when at the back of the credit crunch, they made everyone give advice, and the banks didn't used to give advice, whereas the mortgage broker did. So it went from being 70%, well, probably about 50%, and then 70% to be 90% towards the brokers, because ultimately from the bank's point of view, we give the advice, we do the admin, we package it all up and then send it over to the bank to underwrite. So we actually then take away a lot of the legwork from the banks, which means they don't have to have office space, don't have to employ people, don't have to take the risk of giving the advice. So actually the market moved from being very much a broker-led, whereas in 2000, the banks were still very active on the high street and to try and encourage a lot of business. The biggest white elephant in the room, I'll be very honest, in 2000 in the noughties was that HSBC didn't deal with brokers. So all the brokers were saying you were independent, but there was one big elephant in the room, which was HSBC. 2014 brought HSBC to the table. So you can pretty much say, yes, we are now covering the whole market.
Yeah.
So that showed a willingness. And one of the biggest reasons why HSBC didn't deal with brokers is because they wanted the client to come to them and then take all their peripheral services, all their insurance, take banking and stuff like that. So their view was, we do it all, we get all the rest of it. Whereas you go to a broker, they'll recommend the right bank and they'll recommend the right insurance to do the life insurance, critical illness cover, and they'll recommend the right insurance to cover the general insurance bit. So you'll split it all up to get the best overall package. Whereas if you go direct to, back then, HSBC, they're not going to tell you how they compare to the market, and they'll only tell you about their insurance products. So that was their business decision. But when it came to actually implementing an advice process, you've got to turn this big juggernaut around, and all of a sudden they couldn't do it. I heard stories of people working inside the banks where it would take 7 hours to go through an application and things like that, because the compliance was so heavy they were trying to put out there, and ultimately they didn't really understand what the broker was doing. Inside the banks, you think brokers were trying it on and stuff like that. Well, actually, no, you just gave the right advice for the right bank. So the ability to access finance is different. So you can't just go knocking on the door and expect to on a bank and get the finance. You've got to go through the right channels. And let's be honest, a lot of brokers are now dealing with estate agents or whatever, however they get the business, but you're not going to get that many brokers on the high street sat in an office with there are obviously out there, but I guess in London you're not going to get it so much. So that's probably the biggest thing, really. So, and I guess when you're immersed in it, you don't see the changes. It's only when you sort of retrospectively look back and go, okay, fine, that's where it used to be, but it all just feels like it's just been a seamless change.
Fair enough. And so thinking about it more recently, one of your favorite things that you use is Copilot.
Okay, yeah.
And you love to use AI when you run everything through well, not everything, but most things through Copilot when it comes to having meetings and stuff. Do you think the integration of AI and all these different technologies is it helping buyers with their knowledge base in a sense that they can type something in, they can find out information about mortgages? Do you think that's a good thing, or do you think it's creating some type of confusion when it comes to getting advice about mortgage?
As you know, when I say Copilot, you go, don't believe Copilot.
Yeah, true.
So the problem with AI, and especially the ChatGPT and stuff like that, if you ask simple questions, you just don't know if it's correct or not. And, you put something in and it gives you the wrong answer, then you push back and it goes, oh, sorry, you are actually correct here, especially when I'm testing it for football knowledge, because I'll beat it on that. So it does make you worry. Look, AI is great for things that relevant of work in this industry, like checking your emails, responses and stuff like that, a bit of automation, great for putting some great spreadsheets together and stuff like that. But is it actually specific to what I do? I think it improves generally, but you've got to be wary of what it does if you're asking for advice.
Yeah. Do you think there's ever going to be a time where, because obviously it's people are obviously pushing that side of sort of the world of AI technology and all that kind of stuff, and there's always a danger that it's going to come into an industry and it's going to take over, and if you don't sort of keep up to date, it will you'll become obsolete as an individual. Do you think there is the danger of that eventually some days there will be AI will just replace advisors, or do you think there's always going to be that need for that human interaction?
There's a danger, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure the blacksmiths 150 years ago thought this automobile that was never going to work or what have you. The industries move on. There's a whole thing, isn't there, that 70% of the jobs our children are going to have don't exist at this moment of time. So how things adapt and how change goes through, who knows? When I've thought of it, actually, when I was at school, mortgage brokers didn't exist. So my job wasn't actually as an independent mortgage advisor, didn't exist.
So many years ago.
I know, exactly.
Years ago.
So that shows you how things can change. But obviously, it's a more mature market. Things will adapt, and what people think is going to, the reality of what will be completely different from what people think now. You know, if you think back just before COVID, people talk about robo-advice. That term has gone, you know, where's that gone?
I haven't heard that in a while.
No, exactly. So that's where, you know, those in the know are going, yes, it's going down this path. This is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
The consumer will dictate what works and what doesn't. You can have great tech, you know, like, you know, tech is only good as what it's only as good as the people using it. And if people don't embrace it, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, even though if it does work theoretically, you know, it does work, but unless people are using it, it's completely, it's obsolete.
Yeah.
So there will be things that make things easier. I still think the mortgage side of it is a lot more complex just because it's very specific to property, it's very specific to streets. It's not just the advice and getting the best rate in the market, it's all the other bits that come together. And like I said before, it only takes one thing to go wrong in a bank some way, shape or form for them to drill down and take 2 steps back. So there will be progressions, but there'll always be a certain amount of input from humans that are going to be there. Well, I hope anyway.
Yeah,
otherwise
fingers
we'll
crossed.
be reappearing somewhere else.
Yeah. Do you think it's also because of the constant changes in criteria with lenders?
Yes.
As you mentioned before, it's one day they'll do a certain type of property, the next day they won't, and it's trying to keep up with that.
Yeah.
Across hundreds of different lenders with thousands of different products. Do you think that's the biggest sort of reason?
Simple answer is yes. And the reason, look, you know, like I know that. What's the reason why these changes are there? Okay, it's because they want to get more applications through the door, or Mr. Risk is pulling the lender back into a different direction. Which, when things are good and the liquidity is there, they'll look for different ways. And how does a lender get money out the door? They've got 2 things ultimately: they price the best, which they then got to be able to control the volume, or they change their criteria. And the criteria is loosen up here, loosen up there, or they change the credit score. And they never tell us, of course. So there's certain things like loan to values, type of properties, above commercial, new builds and stuff like that. But when the world changes, it goes wrong, they start restricting loan to values. They start not liking new builds, start not liking certain postcodes. Yeah. So that in itself means on a daily basis things are changing. And again, like I said earlier, when you're immersed in it, you don't feel it. But the one time when I was at my old company, I got promoted, and I wasn't on the tools for about 4 months, and then the credit crunch hit, and I got forced back on the tools to help drive some revenue. But during that time, it was getting back on the tools even after a few months I was a little bit out of check with it. So it just shows how quickly things can change without realising it. And it is all those little bits that do change constantly. I mean, all the lenders we deal with, we get a notification. Sometimes it goes through the cracks until we've had a business development meeting with one of the major lenders, and they've verbally been able to tell us a few bits of change that got missed. So there's constantly things going on out there, and it is those sort of intricacies that means that if there's one way of hoovering it all up, then great. But the reason we exist is not every lender does the same thing. So it'll fit a little pocket here, a little pocket there.
And it's just trying to find the right sort of puzzle to fit.
And I guess theoretically there should be a robot that does it for us. Yeah. But hey, we're the robot for the moment.
There you go then. So I wanted to move on to talking about sort of working with introducers and estate agents and other sort of partners and stuff like that. Why do you think it's so pivotal and important for an introducer to have a good broker on board to work with them? So like an estate agent, for example.
Okay. Well, there's a point of their referral reflecting on them. So we're not going to name names, but there'll be certain nationwide organisations that will have a self-owned mortgage broker that will probably not have the quality of people that we've got, and they'll force people into using their ancillary services. There was a thing recently on BBC about certain companies. So there's obviously money in it for them, but ultimately, and those sort of companies, or the bigger companies, are doing what they're told. It's coming from the top down. You must do this. That's who we use for solicitors. That's who we use for surveyors, and that's who we use for financial services. And we all know that they use all the total package. The company earns more money from it. If you've got the independent choice to use the right broker, it's a reflection on you. You're dealing with the right people. If it's the right job, like I know, if you recommend a good solicitor, it reflects well on you.
Yeah.
And that's the professional thing you should look at. Is making sure you'd surround yourself with the best people.
Yeah. What have you picked up from some of our introducers or some of the introducers that we worked with over the last sort of 12 months since we've done season 1? But what have you picked up mainly from them has been the biggest sort of feedback that you've got from them?
In what from
just in terms of how we're able to help, what's more important for them in terms of having us on
responsiveness, actually having somebody deal with a client at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night. So one very big example is Anne-Marie. A referral comes in at 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and she's speaking to the client at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night. Where else is you going to get that service from? From us, we've got the right people that understand the importance of getting on and actually dealing with the client as quick as possible. So it's actually the responsiveness, obviously the clarity, and getting that client to feed back to the agent. So that person was amazing. Yeah. They got on the phone. They helped me really well, and ultimately, from a situation that the client's in that didn't know which way to turn, able to fix it and point them in the right direction. So it's reputation. It's basically having that sort of responsiveness, and it's where I, personally, from 20 years ago, working alongside James Evans in an office on the Sloane Square, James got to like me because I was responsive.
You're such a likable guy. You're such a likable guy, obviously.
But a lot of it is obviously I was good at the job, but also good work ethic, and went outside the norm to deliver on the service side of things, rather than go, I'll put them in for a call in 5 hours' time. So get on the phone now, this guy needs help. They're there to be helped. So the most important thing is the fact we've got that ability. We've got the right type of individuals who aren't just clocking in at 9 and leaving the desk at 4:30 and having hour's lunch and can't be pushed to make a phone call at the right times. It's having that right type of individual.
And from an agent's perspective, how pivotal is it from them having that right person that they can refer for mortgage advice to keep a deal together?
Yeah, that's the most important thing from a mortgage perspective. You're either going to have companies that are referring because they're told to do it and they don't believe in it, but the companies, individuals that get it, build the relationship and understand the person is the dreamland. Again, so I go back to James. He'll be like, "You've got to use Dave. Dave's the best." And he believe in me that much. The person's going, "I'm using Dave," before even thinking about it. It's whereas someone goes, "Oh, do you want to speak to my mortgage advisor?" Like, well, no. And there's a difference between the belief and then doing it because you're told to do it. So, that's the most important thing from our side, is to get that belief there, have that rapport there, and make sure they understand what we do. And guess what? That will then come through when they're passing on our details and looking to introduce.
What separates a good broker from a great one?
Ooh,
because I think
white teeth. I don't know.
Yeah, the white teeth. I think if you look across our industry, I think even from when I started 8 years ago, the number of mortgage advisors that are now out there, I think, has grown, and I think from when you probably started doing it, it's probably grown a huge amount.
There's been fluctuations,
but I think it's the one thing that no sort of company is short of is good brokers. But what separates someone from being good to great? What do they need to do to sort of take that next step up, in your opinion?
A good broker is someone's competent, understands what they're up to, answers, gets on the clients, and builds a nice pipeline and earns a good living. A great broker, I believe in life, you get paid for the stress you can handle. The more stress you can handle, the more rewards are out there. So a great broker is someone that can take on a lot more responsibility, still keep their service levels at the same level, and deal more deals. We've all got 24 hours of the day. It depends how much you sleep and how much you get out of bed. So you can cheat on a bit of time. Or you could be efficient, to the point, understand what you're up to, and work at a high volume with the same competency and the same integrity and the same and just having a different level of going forward. And then over time that snowballs, and it really does come down to having the mental ability and to keep straight, keep focused when there's stuff going on personally, stuff going on work-wise. you're able to handle the stress and still think correctly at the right times. And then afterwards debrief yourself and go for counselling or whatever you need to do. But when you're in the mode, in the game, you've got to be keeping that head as straight as possible to deal with the volume that comes at you, which when you run the company and still do a lot of business like I try to do, it's the biggest thing I try to do. And you've got to be as efficient as possible as well. Your efficiency is key. You've got to be right, bang, get the job done. Don't be a busy fool. And that's the thing. You can waste so much time messing around with things, or keep the focus, keep the stress levels there. Don't flap out when you're under pressure for whatever reason. Stuff will always happen that's outside of your control. Look to fix it. Look to deal with it straight away. Don't kick the can away because it'll come back to bite you. Just deal with everything as quick as possible. But great is dealing with higher volume and being just able to cope with it.
Do you think that's a teachable ability, or do you think it's just some people are born with it, some people aren't?
What's the thing that's sport, isn't it? There's some of it is natural ability, but also you've got to harness it as well. So you can have the natural ability to do the job, but you've got to put the training, the effort in to condition yourself to do better. So the bit that is teachable is the ability to deal with higher volumes and actually try and be more efficient and teach someone to make the right decisions. There's only so much you can do, but there has to be a bit of an underlying factor that gives you the edge, whether it be you're just good at numbers, which is probably one of my things. You just get on with people. There'll be people that will just be so charismatic that will deal with it. I'm straight and to the point. Probably that's me cheating a bit, really, to save a bit of time. So yes, there are certain things you can do, but it's down to the individual to go from good to great.
Do you have any advice for people that want to go to that sort of next level? So there's hopefully there's some brokers out there that are listening that are at the level they're really, really good, but they want to get to that next level. What do you think they could do to kind of take that next step up?
Well, be more organised. So you said things about Copilot and stuff like that. It's using the tools around you to be as organised as much as possible.
Yeah.
Well, even if it's just having a book with right, this is what I must do, and not leaving your desk until you've ticked off everything. That means it's 9 o'clock at night. Over time, you'll condition yourself to be quicker. You've just got to set yourself targets and also deliver on what you said you're going to do. If you said you're going to do something, you've got to do it. And that means you're at your desk to whatever, and then just becoming as good as organised as possible, to be as slick as possible, to make sure that you deliver the best service. But again, the busy fool thing is a big thing. I've seen people mess around for whatever, waste hours over stuff that they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
It's just prioritizing and also setting goals, setting targets. Not saying I've got to earn a minimum of that. It's like I want to earn that, or I've got to do this. His setting high targets that are pushing you further than what you're doing at the moment is always the best way. In a sales job, it's what's the worst thing about hitting your target? Bigger targets.
Yeah.
And that's the way to look upon it. It's like, right, okay, I've achieved that. Right, fine. Let's take it a bit further. Today I did my best ever deadlift, and it's a bit like, right, okay. Next, pretty nearly broke my back, and the coach frowned at me as I did my third one. But so, okay, back's okay. Let's move on. Next week I'll get the form right, and then I'll move on to the next thing. So again, it's a progression. It's a sail close to the wind, but it's saying, right, okay, I know what I'm going to do next week, and then push it again once I've corrected the form or what have you. So yes, it's setting yourself, keeping organised, using the tools around you, and be straight to the point.
So obviously as we've established, you've been doing this for a long time, and technology's moved on and all these new sort of fancy toys that you can use. Is there anything that you have or you still do today that you've been doing since day one, like a really simple thing to help you remember to do stuff? You mentioned obviously writing stuff down in your book as a little to-do list. Is there anything else that you do that just sort of keeps you being able to sort of stay organised and do what you need to do? Something that you've done since day one?
Not necessarily, because I think the questions you've asked me, so what can you do better? I've just become more conditioned to be better at it. My admin wasn't great years ago. I just sort of winged it. Sort of didn't know what I was up to, really. I just got chucked in the deep end a little bit, but over time, you learn what you're doing. You learn that if you keep a little tweak there, a little tweak there, a little tweak there, you are more effective and you're able to deal with more. So Is there anything I'd do better more? I guess then it was always about see as many people as possible, and some of it, if I see enough people, I'll do enough business.
Yeah.
Today I'm in a different situation personally where people come to me because of all the good work I've done over the years. So it's completely different, really. So, but it was the work ethic. I guess the targets is probably the biggest thing I've still got in my head. I still, sadly love a league table. I love a target. I still want to put my name in lights, even though I'm still having to make sure you're okay and everyone else is okay. I'm not just a soldier out there on my own. And sometimes it's a bit like, okay, what would it be like if I just went out and just did it myself? But as I always say, I'd always get bored of it and have you to speak to every day.
Well, hopefully. We spoke before, obviously, about the different markets that we're in, and there's always something that sort of comes up. Obviously, there's loads of stuff going on at the moment with our own government, things going on abroad that is causing uncertainty for some buyers, some owners and stuff like that. And I guess when it comes to clients feeling uncertain about the market, how important is it that you stay calm in that situation when speaking to them and not sort of flap as well?
Oh, important, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's one that, someone in the past once said, it's, you fall out of a boat and all of a sudden the kids are flapping around. You come up flapping around, they're going to panic. But if you swim over to them nice and calmly, they're going to be calm. So the more you can convey that calmness, the better. And again, from years of experience, you've not seen it all before, but you've seen a lot before to go, okay, calm down. Not calm down, don't want to patronise, of course, but it's like, it's fine. This is how we're going to do. This is the solutions. I'm always a big believer in, even when we make mortgage applications, it's not 100% it's going to go through because you don't know what's in the background, property, underwriter, stuff like that. It's always knowing that when there is a problem, you fix the problem with a solution. So I don't call the client up without a solution in the back of my head. I go, right, okay, this has happened. However, this is how we're going to fix it. So it's making sure you understand and calmly. So fine. Well, this is why I'm here. It's because things like this when things go wrong, this is where I'm invaluable to you because I'm here to fix it. You go direct to the bank, they're not going to be able to fix it because it's the only thing they can offer. However, I'll just go to the next cab of the rank that suits your situation, or if that's or work, whatever it may be. But always approach a problem with a solution. Always think it through before you deliver it, and then also the client's gone, okay, fine, well, fine, I'll leave it with me. And I'll get it sorted, and invariably you do get it sorted.
Even if that solution sometimes is to look, we may have to go to a different lender, we may have to look at a different option, but obviously I'm still confident I can get this through for you at the end of the day.
Yeah, if they won't do it, they won't do it. Well, it's simpler, or you've got to make a tweak or something like that. Come up, it's like anything. It's this job's all some of it's just, great about an interest rate, but it's problem solving. There's so many different things of people's incomes, their makeup, the properties, which again goes back to your point about the AI and stuff like that. There's so many little bits in this thing that not sure ask your co-pilot's going to give me the solution straight away.
But do you think that's why experience is really, really helpful in this situation? Because I've not had as many years in the industry as you, and the guys obviously on the team haven't had as many years, but the morning meetings that we always have together, we always sort of bounce ideas off each other and say, I've had this. Do you think that's where having the collective experience is so helpful and valuable? Because we can say, well, I know exactly who you need to go and place that case with, or I know who to avoid in this situation if it's that type of property.
It is, but it's about understanding how to find the solution again. If you remember, I think what I always say to you is I don't know all the answers, but know how to find them. Yeah, it's the old analogy. Catch a fish for somebody, you'll feed them for a day. Teach them to fish, you'll feed them for a lifetime. So it's getting the balance between giving everyone solutions, but also guiding them on how to find the solutions. What have they done? Have you checked this out? Have you done this? Have you gone through that process? And that is where the experience comes in. It's the gut feels there. You know how to deal with a solution, deal with a problem or an issue as to how to find the solution without actually knowing what the solution is. And again, the years of experience where, think about the morning meetings when I having been through the credit crunch doing this job, it's a credit crunch. There was no money to lend. Banks weren't lending. You're lucky enough you haven't had to do that job during that time.
No.
So when we have had blips in the market and I'm there going, yeah, it's just a blip or whatever, we'll get through it. The newer people are going, oh my God, first time they have a blip. And it's like, try and go through the credit crunch. This blip is like that compared to a chasm of not being able to do the job for a year and a half, which effectively what it was. So yes, and that's where experience comes in. You're just able to remain calm under pressure. Just go, okay, fine. Well, market's getting a bit fun. Work a bit harder.
Fair enough. So I want to move on to the Prestige team now. And I wanted to sort of get your thoughts and opinion on how the team has evolved since when we did our first chat a year ago, and how we've evolved since to today, really.
Probably some of our processes. Obviously, we've got the admin girls more involved on the meetings, so they know what's going on. I mean, look, in the modern world where everyone's running around and doing stuff and, doing meetings over Teams, I mean, who would have thought that? It's trying to keep that collective a lot more, obviously having more fun meetups, not always trying to be, let's get Phil and Dave talking to the team and about the same subject here and there. It's trying to keep the fun team element and making sure that we're all good together. I think we've, again, if you think it's season 1 or whatever, but we've probably consolidated the team a lot more. Everyone's a bit more experienced, making sure on top of their clients and being more engaged to deal with, introduce and ask for the business. So it's like I said earlier about just being immersed in it. It's hard to say when you're in it every day, unless you take a pause here and a pause there. But you're always continually trying to help people and help them build their knowledge, and also, like I said, help them to understand how to find the solution, which saves me a bit of time because they don't come asking me every 2 seconds, which I'm more than happy to. But the more I can help people find solutions themselves, the more they're able to actually crack on and be more confident and more and progress themselves further and financially be better off.
I think what helps, just following on from that, is the fact that we're all working very, very closely together. The morning calls that we have, the regular meetups that we have, it's all as one team. It's not like one team go this way, one team go that way, because it's so big. It's because it's a tight-knit team, we're able to bounce off each other really, really well, which helps.
Well, I think that's what I said about the sort of, what I call it, the hybrid. There'll be companies out there that are just full of like individuals that they just offer a platform to plug into, whereas we actually still create that team environment. Even though we're a bunch of individuals in a different thing, we've still got that collectiveness, which means you've got a home, you've got people to deal with. Again, if I was a one-man band, I'd go crazy. I want you to come to me with some problems and stuff. I want drama.
Yeah, of course, you love a bit of drama, don't you? So, what's the focus for the rest of the year then? Do you think getting the World Cup out of the way, obviously, and England winning the World Cup,
and see what Liverpool's new manager's like? This year's been weird anyway, hasn't it? Let's be honest. So March we hit, record Q1, record month, record weeks, and obviously I knew at the time that would just mean that things would then calm down the next month, which just because everything came together. It's getting the consistency. When I look at my league tables and stuff like that and see where we're at, it's just knowing that we are progressing against our peers, which we always seem to be doing. So even if the market fluctuations, they can hold great figures, but if we're climbing up the league tables that we have through our network and stuff like that, that says to me we are in the right directions. When we start going down the tables, then and we're even doing better figures, well, that's the concern. So I'm always about marking us where we're at. So long as we're continue doing that, still continue our high, keeping our targets where they should be, having a high bar, take responsibility individually. Together we'll be happy together. As I'm sure more than anyone else, the quiet periods when everyone starts scratching around because leads are low and everyone's gone away, what have you. It's trying to make sure you go through those sort of barren patches and still come out of it better than anyone else. Which again is stuff that we learned years ago, where you weren't allowed to put Christmas records on.
What was the favourite saying that you like to say?
Go on.
About the turkey?
Oh, even a turkey can fly in a hurricane.
That's the one.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and it's, you make your money in the tough times. It's simple as that. Companies are built on recessions. So it sounds a bit counterintuitive, but once you've been through stuff, that those that are just there and on for the ride will go to the wayside. The biggest bounce for us, for Prestige, gave its biggest bounce was COVID. A lot of people switched off. I know myself personally, I had 2 days off in that original lockdown when you couldn't even do the job. I kept on pushing and pushing and pushing to the nth degree until nothing was going on, and then all of a sudden the market flew again. But what that meant was we were in play when the market went. We went with the market. So, and that was a bit fortuitous, but it was also, when I mentioned the credit crunch previously, having been through the credit crunch, you just had to scrap for a deal because lenders weren't lending. They were maximum loan to value was 65% loan to value. A lot of lenders were going bust and all sorts, and even vanilla cases lenders were turning down. I remember one of the lettings directors, Lloyd's, turned him down because he was an estate agent. It's like, well, if you understood things, lettings is actually going to be okay because people can't buy, they're going to rent. It's like, no, we don't steal them. He's an estate agent. So there's stuff like that you're up against. So when you've been through periods like that and you realise you've just got to work a lot harder, you've got to pedal a lot harder to get some sort of result, you then put that in play for the next time when things happen. So it's lessons like that you get learned that sort of get naturally built into some of your other questions.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that. Yeah, you just got to push for it.
Fair enough. What should buyers be doing right now?
Well, first off, deciding that they want to buy. If they want to buy, and once you start to think about it, subconsciously the decision's made, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just sort of when you actually start going for the gears. So you've just got to be prepared, haven't you? You've got to make sure you've got your mortgage. Speak to a mortgage broker at the outset, so you know what you can afford, what's your affordability. Again, how many times over the years we've spoken to people that whose perceptions are either there or there. You get those on good money think they can only borrow 2 or 3 times their salary, and you get those down there that think that one day they should be borrowing £1 million when they're on like 50k or whatever. It's like, well, no, that's not how it works. No. I'm sure my dad could say he will back me. No, it doesn't work like that. No. So ultimately, it's making sure that you are prepared. So wherever you are in the process of your first-time buyer, different sort of conversations, home movers, it's a different conversation because some of them may not have sold and bought before. They've got to understand what the current level of mortgage is, how much equity is there, and how much is going to go forward, and then understand the chain process. So you need to take advice at the outset, get the right team around you, which is another thing that always we got in business or whatever. Make sure you got the right lawyer, the right mortgage broker, you're dealing with the right agents, and also decide on what area you want to buy in. That is probably the biggest thing actually from obviously understand what your affordability is and then looking at the areas. I mean, from our side, we can't help them so much, and that's a very personal choice. So they've got to do their research there, but it's turn the window shopping into a bit more serious sort of right decision making. There'll be what's the dynamics. Some people at school, some people are just location, some people just want the type of property. Everyone's different. So it's understand what's the most important thing to you. And like we've had, Redo and people like that. So get the right agent that's going to advise you, that's going to point in the right direction. Make sure that you're efficient with your time. Property hunting is so time consuming.
Yeah.
It's with us, they could speak to us at anywhere. We could be anywhere in the world, whatever, have a conversation, but you can't replicate going to the property.
No.
The bricks and mortar ain't going to move. You've got to go to it, regardless of robo, of Copilot, whatever. They can show you stuff, but you're never going to know. You could do some certain amount of research up front now that obviously you couldn't do 20 years ago, but you still got to go and visit it.
Yeah, fair enough. What do you think agents should be thinking about? What's the biggest thing for them?
In what respect? What, helping clients or?
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of obviously the way that the market's gone this year, as you said before, we had a really, really good start to the year in terms of Q1.
Yep.
March was really, really good. And then all of a sudden it felt a bit rocky over the last sort of few months. So for agents sort of looking and moving forward, what should they sort of, in terms of relating it back to us, what should they be sort of focused on sort of more importantly than anything else?
I think good advice, ultimately. As we know, and we've spoken again on these episodes where agents' reputation can be quite unfair at times. You know, there are companies that are just have a process in place, and they'll send someone to do the viewing that doesn't have a clue, just does what their manager tells them. And I think that there's obviously a change in the industry going on at the minute, as we all know. You know, the world of the self-employed estate agent is now becoming very popular. And what that does mean is estate agents will now be getting paid appropriately for the job they do. You know, when they work for some of the bigger names, they don't get paid appropriately. So guess what that attracts? So the agents now are very much about taking responsibility for themselves. Again, from having been someone that worked at one of the larger corporate mortgage brokers to then going out on my own to start with, what you know, when you work in the corporate thing, they go, "Oh, we're great, blah blah," and guess what? They're just chucking stuff at you, and things slip. When you actually go out on your own, your attention to detail goes through the roof. If you're good anyway, and you want to succeed. You know, I always say cream rises to the top, but attention to detail goes through the roof. So everything you do, you care about more than anything. The advice you give, every application you make, you want to make it sure that it's the best possible thing you can do. And that's the thing that should really come through. It's making sure the advice you give, and you're not just trying to wing it to, you know, hide stuff and you know, when you're buying things. I mean, look, you know, estate agents will get unfairly blamed for things during the buying process that they're not aware of. But that's why you've got a lawyer in there, is to check out the legal stuff. How do we know that some of the legal things that come into play as well, defective leases and stuff like that? So it's giving the best advice possible. Hopefully it's the years of understanding what they're up to, and ultimately working out what the buyer does want. So like I said a moment ago about deciding where to buy, it's understanding what they're up to, not trying to push a certain flat down someone's throat because they've got it as an instruction. You know, you want what you, especially in our world, you want someone that's going to recommend you because you've been a good person and given good advice. Yes, you're a good chap or whatever as well, but ultimately your reputation is going to come down to what professional advice you give, and making sure you give that. And in the same way as I've recommended a very good mortgage broker, because it's all part of that sort of package of making sure someone's set up right. Have you got the right lawyers? Have you got the right broker in place? Have you found the right property? The more you can put that together and actually advise that person, you put them in the place and they turn back and go, do you know what, Phil, the agent around the corner, put him in touch with Dave, the mortgage guy, and everything went through seamless, and now I'm happy. You know, there'll always be a compromise somewhere. There'll always be bumps in the road, but if you could put someone in their dream house or dream home, or give them that first foot on the ladder, they'll remember you forever. And then recommendations, referrals breed from it. So it's understanding that everything you do has a consequence, and every interaction you have will hopefully will determine who you are.
Yeah, I was having this conversation with someone earlier on today about how. And they run their own estate agency, and they were saying that how they feel the role of a negotiator or the role of a estate agent has changed so much in terms of just how much knowledge they need to have now compared to what it was like a few years ago, because you have to make sure that you're sounding knowledgeable and that you sound like an expert in what you're doing. And that does come down massively to recommendations that you're going to make, because you're putting your own reputation on the line if you're referring to someone and that person lets you down by not giving the best service or the best advice. So from an agent's point of view, I think it's not, you don't have to be an expert in every field. You don't have to be an expert in mortgages and an expert in solicitors, but you've got to know the basics of what they are and be prepared to refer them to the experts in those fields.
I mean, look, has anything actually changed? Probably not. That expectation should have always been there anyway.
Should have been, yeah.
But the difference is probably, let's be honest, we're a bit older. We're dealing with agents who are a bit older.
Yeah.
When we were younger, working for the bigger company, people were giving that advice. All they were doing differently was doing what their manager told them to do. You know, there'll be their morning meetings would have been, this is where the market is, this is the message to put out, and they've just been calling up as many people as possible, putting the message out they were told to by the manager. So they were giving advice, but the difference is they were giving advice they were told to give rather than actually organically knowing about it. So, you know, we you know, we're older, we're dealing with old people, but there's the expectation, I think, still there, and actually knowing your onions and knowing what's there. It's just that it probably, again, with the change and where the industry's going, the agents are becoming obviously better at it. Let's put it that way. I'd say.
Fair enough.
And obviously we know older agents who have been around a while.
Yeah, exactly. Something we spoke about on one of our previous episodes with Neil, we covered a lot of stuff about landlords and the way that market's looking and the way that market's sort of shaping up. What's your sort of view on how the buy-to-let market is looking over the next sort of period of time, 6 months, 12 months?
There's obviously a change of how people are owning properties. Obviously, the limited company, which is always, even the years I've been doing it, it's always been there, but not many people actually put it into place. That is now becoming prevalent. It's where everything's been, all the barriers to entry have been put up. Again, I know quite a few people that earn a lot of money out of being first embracers of being landlord, buying properties or buy-to-lets in the late 90s and the 2000s. That ship has sailed. It has now become more of a longer term investment. You've got to sit on it for a long time, and you've got to be prepared to not make much money in the short term to actually have it part there. It can be an investment, retirement, whatever it is in the future. So, but I guess because we are quite London dynamic, the London buy-to-let market is just completely different from what it was 10, probably more like 12 years ago at least, until, before the 3% stamp duty came in and then all the tax changes, it sort of put it's made it quite restrictive down here. Whereas obviously in a lot of the other cities in the UK, the rental yields are better and stuff like that. So ownership of how people could buy, the days of doing let to buys aren't as great as what they used to be. You used to be able to buy your first property, keep it, buy your next property, and then buy your next property. So that's a lot harder to transact on. So it's going to go through a sort of weird flat phase, I would imagine, over the next few years, until all of a sudden there's there's not enough properties being rented out. We put all these lovely things in place to protect renters. Well, guess what? You're not attracting landlords. No. So where are these people going to rent from if you haven't got landlords to rent to them? Yeah. And then the data will come out if years time, and they'll go, okay, we'll have to reverse it. And then when you reverse it, then you'll get your uptick. Like a lot of investments, it's sometimes you just got to buy it, sit on it, and it'll flatline, and all of a sudden it will spike. Then it'll come down a bit, and then the flatline and it spikes. So you'll get spikes at certain points, but you're going to need to. I can't foresee there being a massive sort of boom in it, and it feels like it's against landlords at the moment. Even though some of the changes I don't think are that revolutionary anyway. There are some hurdles, but you've got to be prepared to not. You're not going to get many people flipping stuff, and stamp duty is going to make it so, too many barriers to do it. You've got to be prepared to pay your stamp, sit on that property for a long period of time, and at some point it will come good. Yeah, like really good. It will make, if you're able to put down a certain level of deposit or what have you, as long as it sort of washes its own face. Yeah. Fine. So you've got to do your numbers and make sure that it all fits, and do your research again.
Fair enough. I've asked every episode that I've done, I've always asked someone, if you had a magic wand and you could change one thing to kind of boost the market, change something about mortgages or whatever it would be, what would your one thing be?
Make Copilot do everything.
You just said we didn't need it.
Well, but again, it's if things were to be made easy, and I think there's a lot of barriers to do it. Of course, the less admin you have to do in life, the better, isn't it? But I do think it's going to be impossible to do to a certain degree. And actually, when you put cases together, make applications, understanding what you're doing actually is quite imperative. So having someone do it all for you is not great, because you don't know what you're up to. So making the applications, putting it together as smooth as possible. What else can you want to do that's going to make things better?
What about if we isolate, just look at the property market, or someone looking to buy? Is there something, would a change in the stamp duty?
Absolutely, of course. Stamp duty holiday. Of course, we could come.
All right, in an ideal world, then. You're sitting in front of. Take
the incentives out of the equation. Yeah. The conveyancing process still needs to be a lot more slicker. Right. As you know, I think proof of deposit, where you've got agents now doing it, solicitors doing it, us doing it. We'll triple banking work. I think that's probably my biggest annoyance, because we'll check out, source of funds for the client, get the mortgage approved, and the solicitor does it right at the end of the process and decides to go and ask the bank whether they're happy with the work we've done, because they'll have their own checks to do. It's I think that's one bit I think actually is a quick win that should actually, one sort of verification process that fits across all 3 platforms would be great, because that is quite a big thing.
I think Ollie mentioned that in one of the previous episodes, was having one place where it applies to the broker, the solicitor, and the agent. It's ID checks, deposit checks.
Because that then that takes each individual out there. I guess from a being skeptical, is probably the HMRC want us all doing it just to make sure that there's 3 layers of checks coming through to make sure the source of funds are there. That's just me being cynical, but of course my side. But if there's one thing to take that out of the equation, but a lot of the conveyancing process does need to be quicker and stuff like that. The quicker you could get that done, I mean, I think even Neil mentioned it a few weeks back, where it's generally not the finance side that holds things up. We'll get the finance approved. From the finance side, that generally holds up is when the solicitor starts asking questions 3 months after we've got the finance approved. Do that quicker. But again, it's just been a lot more slicker with that side of things. Why should it take 3 to 4 months to purchase? Surely it should take a smaller period of time. But do you know what? You've got people's lives there, people moving in a chain. There's so many different dynamics. It's actually quite to do. But a few quick wins here and there can take the pain out, where, if you've got a chain of 7 and also one on the chain hasn't done the, deposit checks and stuff like that, and it's holding it up, well, that's needless. That shouldn't be happening. A lot of those sort of things should be done up front. I think, the ID checks, platforming it at the outset, source of funds at the outset, and then that'll give you the best chance of getting things through. Obviously, maybe the packs of getting all the local authority searches done as soon as possible and stuff like that. They obviously change all the time as well. But doing as much of the process up front as
early as possible
to get quicker results. But again, then grandma will change her mind on moving and doesn't want to leave the top of the chain, doesn't want to move from the house, and she doesn't tell anyone until the last second. You can't change that.
No, there's nothing you can do about that, unfortunately. Okay, cool. Well, look, I think this has been a really, really good episode. I think it's been a good way to kind of wrap up season 2. If there's one thing that you want to leave the listeners with on the end of season 2, what would it be?
Well, I hope they've enjoyed listening. We've tried to make it as broad as possible. You've been a very good host as well, Phil. You've asked some very good questions. So thank you for your time today. I'm proud of, obviously, what Prestige is, the team. We do look after people. We've got the right ethos in place, and hopefully pass on a bit of knowledge will help everybody. So, but no, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
It's been good fun.
Great.
Once again, thank you very much.